There are two kinds of news in this world. One you see in public. The other, I hope you never meet in person.
Dispatch told me never to log the same way station twice in one night. The second time I passed it, my route still had not moved forward. The same white reefer was parked under the dead sodium light again. Archive file, W42. Interstate Freight Corridor, eastbound, night run. The voice memo attached to this file was recorded inside a sleeper cab at 4:18 a.m. The driver identifies himself as Gabe Nolan, independent contract hauler, temporary load board route under Merrow Dispatch. Dispatch told me never to log the same way station twice in one night. That was the exact sentence. Not, don't stop there. Not, keep rolling if the scale is closed. Not, call us if anything feels wrong. It was narrower than that, which made it harder to laugh off. If you pass Willow Creek twice between sundown and sunrise, don't enter the second pass in the log. Call dispatch on channel 4 and wait for a live voice. The woman who told me that was named Mara. She had the flat, tired sound of someone who had moved too many drivers through too many bad hours and no longer decorated instructions. She did not say it like folklore. She said it like a fuel card pin. My run was not special on paper. Dry goods out of a crossdock near Columbus, 2 sealed pallets added outside Dayton, then south before morning to a receiving yard that wanted its paperwork clean by 6. The kind of run where nobody cares about your name if the trailer seal matches and the temperature recorder looks normal. I had been driving long enough to know that dispatch rules come in 2 kinds. The first kind exists because someone in an office needs the software to look right. The second kind exists because someone in a cab found a problem the software could not hold. Mara's rule felt like the second kind. Willow Creek was a state scale on the old highway alignment, not a big inspection complex. 2 lanes, 1 low building. A pull-off lot with tired sodium lights and a sign that always looked half asleep. Most nights it was closed, but the ramp stayed plowed and drivers still used the shoulder to check straps, take calls, or stare at nothing for 5 minutes before going back to the wheel. It was not a place you would remember from a daytime drive. Daylight makes road infrastructure look temporary, even when it has been there for 30 years. At night, the little permanent things get louder. The reflector missing from the first guardrail post. The yellow paint scraped off the curb where trailers cut too tight. The booth window with cardboard taped inside to block the west sun, even though nobody had sat there in months. That was the kind of detail I noticed because noticing useless details keeps you awake. The first time I passed it that night, the bypass light was green. I rolled through at 12:43, watched the empty booth slide past on my left, and entered the pass like any other location note. Willow Creek scale, green, no stop. Odometer matched. ELD accepted it. That should have been the end of Willow Creek for the night. At 12:43, I was still fresh enough to be annoyed by the rule instead of afraid of it. That matters. Fear makes people add meaning. Annoyance keeps the details cleaner. The booth lights were out, except for the small service lamp above the side door. The scale deck was dry. A white reefer sat on the far edge of the lot with one amber marker light dead on the passenger side. I remember that because a dead marker light on somebody else's trailer is the kind of useless detail your brain collects when the road is empty. No inspector came out. No truck pulled behind me. The CB was mostly static, and one man 2 miles back complaining about coffee. I keyed the pass into my notes because I still kept paper behind the digital system. Not because I'm old school, because electronic logs are good at proving what the company already wants to measure. Paper is better at catching the parts that feel wrong before they become reportable. The second pass started as a timing problem. At 2:17, after a long, dark stretch with no fuel stops, no detours, and no reason to think I had looped, the shoulder reflectors changed. That sounds small because it is small, but drivers learn the grammar of the road the way guards learn a building. Which exit has broken pavement? Which bridge joint hits the steer tires harder than it should? Which county uses blue reflectors near hydrants, and which county never replaced the old ones? These reflectors were wrong for where I should have been. Then I saw the sign. Willow Creek scale, 1 mile. I checked the ELD first, then the odometer, then the paper route I had folded between the cup holders. All three told me I was still southbound. All three told me I had been moving for more than an hour. The road outside the glass told me I was coming up on the same scale again. The second time I passed it, my route still had not moved forward. That is the cleanest sentence I can give you. The dashboard clock said 2:22. The ELD said I was 16 miles past the point where Willow Creek should have been behind me. My fuel gauge had dropped the way it should. My shoulders felt like I had driven those miles. But the scale appeared in the same order. Same service lamp, same 2 empty lanes, same green bypass light glowing like it had been waiting to see whether I would remember instructions. I almost logged it. That is the part I do not like admitting. My thumb was already on the tablet. A clean note would make the route make sense later. If I entered Willow Creek again, the system would have a second fact, and maybe the rest of the map would rearrange itself around it. That is what paperwork teaches you to want. Not truth exactly. Continuity. A sheet that matches the next sheet. A route that can be explained to someone who was sleeping while you were inside it. A little box checked, so the morning office does not call you 3 times while you are trying to park somewhere legal and close your eyes. The second pass wanted to become a clean line. Then Mara's sentence landed in my head with the dull force of a wheel chock. Don't enter the second pass in the log. Call dispatch on channel 4 and wait for a live voice. The same white reefer was parked under the dead sodium light again. Not a similar truck, the same one. Dead passenger marker, gray smear along the rear door hinge, mud flap torn at the bottom like somebody had stepped on it while dropping a trailer. It sat at the same angle on the far edge of the lot, nose out, dark cab glass facing the scale deck. I rolled past slow enough to see that no one was in the driver's seat. The air brake sigh I heard did not come from my truck. I kept both hands on the wheel and did not stop on the deck. Not because I was brave, because stopping would have made it official. There are moments on a night route when you can feel the difference between noticing a wrong thing and joining it. At the far end of the bypass lane, where the road should have pulled me back to the highway, my CB hissed once, and Mara's voice came through so clean it sounded closer than dispatch ever sounds. "Gabe," she said, "do not log it."
I had not called her yet. My hand was still reaching for the mic. That is what made me listen. I said, "I'm here." She said, "Tell me 3 things. Your odometer, your next exit, and whether the white truck is there." I gave her the odometer. She was quiet just long enough for me to hear road grit tapping under my own fenders. Then she said, "That mileage is from your first pass." I looked again, because when a dispatcher says something impossible, the first thing you do is assume you read your own equipment wrong. I wiped my thumb across the trip meter like dust could change math. I leaned closer to the tablet, even though I had just turned away from it. The numbers stayed where they were. "No," I said. I hated how small my voice sounded in the cab. She did not argue. Good dispatchers don't waste fear on argument when the driver is still moving. She said, "Look for your next exit marker." I looked. The reflective tab on the shoulder said 116. It should have said 129. I had driven the distance. I had burned the fuel. I had felt the hour pass in my knees and lower back, but the road had not accepted it as forward motion. Mara breathed out once. "Stay off the log," she said. "Keep rolling. Do not pull into the lot. Do not answer if someone calls from the scale speaker." The scale speaker clicked when I reached the merge. One dry pop. Then a man's voice said my unit number, not the company name, not, "Hey, driver." My unit number, clean and correct, coming from a speaker box that should only be used by state staff during active hours. I did not answer. The ELD chimed. A prompt opened by itself asking whether I wanted to confirm a location event. It showed Willow Creek scale. It showed the correct time. It waited there with a blue button at the bottom, and I have never hated a clean button more in my life. Mara said, "Put the tablet face down." I did. The cab got darker without that little rectangle of light. For a few seconds, the only things left were the engine, my breathing, and the speaker behind me calling my unit number again in the same calm voice. Then the ramp ended. The highway did not. Mara kept me talking after that, not about the scale, about normal things. Tire temperature, shoulder conditions, how much fuel I had, whether I had caffeine left, and whether I was close enough to a legal pull-off when she told me to stop. That was how I understood she had done this before. She was keeping me inside ordinary work because ordinary work still had edges. When the mile marker finally changed to 117, she told me I could breathe, but not stop. She said I had to reach the county rest area before I could pull over, and if I saw the white reefer again before then, I was to keep my eyes forward and speak only to dispatch. At the rest area, under lights that buzzed like an old freezer, she gave me the part that was never in training. There used to be a detour during bridge work, years before I drove that route. Trucks were sent off the main line past Willow Creek through a temporary scale check and back around by a service road that the state later removed from the map. A driver on that detour never made his delivery window. The official report said he falsified his log and abandoned the load. Mara did not say his name at first. That also told me something. Dispatchers use names when a story is safe. They use driver, unit, load, incident when the story still has teeth in it. She said the load was found later at a closed gravel turnout with the seal intact and the reefer still running. The cab was locked. The paper log sat open on the passenger seat. 2 Willow Creek entries were written 7 minutes apart, in the same hand, with the second one pressed so hard the pen tore the page. Drivers kept saying something else. They said he passed the scale twice and tried to make the log accept both.
I asked why logging it mattered. Mara said,
"Because the log is the part the system believes."
I wanted to tell her that sentence was insane. I also wanted to tell her the scale speaker had known my unit number before I answered any call. So I just listened. She said the second pass was not the trap by itself. The trap was making a clean record of it. The road would give you the same infrastructure twice. Same ramp, same booth, same parked witness truck, if it wanted to be ugly about it. If you refused to make the second pass official, dispatch could usually talk you through until the route started moving again. Usually was the word I did not ask about. There are words you leave alone while you are still inside the place that made them necessary. But if you logged it, the system would reconcile around that new fact. Miles would compress, exits would repeat, fuel would still burn, time would keep taking its share, and eventually the route would offer you another chance to make it clean. Then another, until the driver did what tired people do with impossible paperwork. Accept the prompt. Make the screen stop asking. Let the road decide what that means. At 3:31, the mile marker started behaving. Not all at once. Nothing generous like that. First 118, then 119, then a long empty section where I kept expecting the old shoulder reflectors to come back, and they didn't. By the time I reached 129, the cab felt less like a vehicle and more like a room somebody had let me leave. I did not see the white reefer again. That should have made me feel better. It did not. Absence can be proof too, if you know what was supposed to be waiting. I delivered late enough that receiving complained, and early enough that nobody wrote me up. My ELD showed a route that made technical sense if you did not ask why my fuel purchase and my paper notes disagreed by almost an hour. Mara told me to file fatigue and weather, so I did. That is the part people outside these jobs never understand. You do not always file the true thing. Sometimes you file the thing that keeps the route from opening its mouth wider for the next person. I still drive that corridor sometimes. Willow Creek is still there. The state repainted the lane arrows last spring and replaced the booth roof after wind took a panel off. The scale looks more ordinary now, which is its own kind of insult. I have passed it many times since. Once per night, it is just a scale. That is the rule I trust. The paper note in my cab is not official. Nothing useful ever is. It sits behind my permit book in pencil because ink feels too confident for something like this. I have rewritten it twice. Once after coffee bled through the first card. Once after a DOT officer flipped through the permit book and asked why I had a note about Willow Creek tucked behind my insurance. I told him it was a dispatch reminder.
He nodded because every driver has scraps of nonsense that are really procedures. If you pass Willow Creek twice between sundown and sunrise, do not log the second pass. Call dispatch. Wait for a live voice. Do not answer the scale speaker. And if there is a white reefer under the far sodium light with one marker dead, keep your eyes forward until the mile markers start counting like they remember what forward means. I do not know what happened to the driver from the old detour. I know what the road kept from him. I know what Mara gave back to me 1 mile marker at a time. Some jobs do not leave memorials. They leave instructions. You learn to recognize them after a while. They are never written beautifully. They are written quickly by someone who did not have enough authority to fix the dangerous thing and did not have enough time to explain it. This is mine.